We are live. We're gonna build the atmosphere.
All right, hi, Ben. Nice to meet you in person. Yeah, thanks for doing a bunch of work where there's tater tots. Excellent. Yeah, they're out. I just wanted to. This is a working liquid sort of event. Right? I spent 3 hours at a Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just going to be kind of discussion. Well, are you afraid the conversation will go and it was like household trial is very complex. I'm like, not whatever. Taxes out here. There's really no way to audit. I wasn't sure how to remember. I had tell the jury.
By any means.
Yeah. You know what? Where it's check out
For those who are here for the Food for Thought of Art, welcome. We're going to get started probably in the next 8 minutes. Anyone who's into our swag giveaway, please go ahead. We have plenty of it's free to enter. You can win something. So take your time to fill out a raffle.
good luck.
Do the full event. Lou's gonna do the full event. Yeah, I know it is. It takes. We've been discussing it.
Thorough.
Yeah.
Because I won't feel like it's
No.
now I have access to Alright. How am I supposed to do it? Here. Well, but you're making me worry about.
And you want to say something encouraging to yourself?
come together for Tots and Wonky Budget Takes tonight. So give yourself a round of applause. And another thanks to Sean Happy Dog staff. You know, their team is amazing, so please do tip them well. Folks we've got a live stream going on, so for all of y'all joining on YouTube, Twitter, please do engage with us. I've got to shout out my colleagues, Alex Smith, monitor the chat, casting us out. And also got to shout out my colleague Bree Easterling, who's going to be helping videos for people who want to talk about why budgets matter to me. All right. But definitely not least, got to give another big thanks to my colleague Michelle Unes, who's, the map and my partner in bringing this event together. So, round of applause to Michelle. And our sponsor for tonight's event, Brian Pearson with North Shore AFL-CIO, the first round in our door prize giveaway. So, Brian, you have a message to the crew?
Hey everybody, I just want to say I'm in a room with some of Cleveland's best activists and they're both brilliant minds in our movement. Real quick, if it's okay, should we raise our drinks and raise our tater tots? We're being serious change makers in our community. Thank you.
As I said, we got door prizes we're giving away. This is the first drawing of the night. We're going to do one at the end. But the first name up, Brian.
It's Molly Martin.
All right, cool. So that again, I now get to the pleasure of welcoming our panel for tonight's discussion. Amazing folks, as Brian shared, some of the brightest activists are in the room with each other and strategize, but also on the panel, I'm joined by amazing activists and thinkers. Right next to me is Evan O'Reilly. Evan is a musician and very involved in local progressive politics, including the Association and the County Jail Coalition. He's currently a community organizer with both Noble, Northern Equality, and PB CLE, Participatory Budget Cleveland. So, shout out to Evan. Evan, I'm not doing applause breaks. Sorry. Next to Evan, a longtime organizer with Noble, and organizer who approaches this work with so much grace and humility and deep care. She's very much engaged about politics, and in her free time, she also enjoys making music. So, this rock band, I don't know, but we're gonna try to get musical up here. And this is my executive director at Policy Matters Ohio, Hannah Halberts. Hannah. Hannah is an advocate, strategist, in general, overall good human beings to help families thrive, protect working people's rights, and hold Ohio's elected leaders deliver for the promise of the state. So thank you for being here with us, and shout out to Hannah. All right. Now I gotta also just shout out to some folks in this room. This is a really beautiful room. Big shout out to the crew with PB CLE. PB Cleveland is an intersectional coalition, really fighting for the people of the city and give them our local budgets are brought together and how we can get more people in directly in communities. So shout out to PB CLE. Shout out to the Noble members in this room. Bringing the voices of so many empathic folks in a diverse coalition of people at the local level. And shout out to the crew with the Northeast Ohio Worker Center. Your board meeting was here. as well as the team from working, has brought us a wage theft enforcement ordinance to the city of Cleveland. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to all of our partners in labor. Y'all are doing amazing things for working people. Strong labor unions are what make us, that make Ohio where we can all thrive. So thank you all. And yeah, I think with that, this is a group of like-minded people that I think, at least are coming together around this idea of budget. I think special in that way, and it's not solely because you like to look at spreadsheets, right? Or reconciliation. This is, I think, because y'all care about your community's needs being met. You're here tonight. So I think we're going to talk, more on this and how shared dollars can show what we stand for. And, y'all, as our elected leaders, we can do better for all of us. So, I think a rule changed the trajectory of our state and our city. So talk with each other throughout the night. Learn what are the issues that brought you to the table. Because, budgets are important to you, important to our neighbors. When we think about how those dollars come into our communities, it has an impact on all of us. Why budgets matter for, because budgets can really be a tool for solidarity. This also as an on-ramp to civic action. And definitely, when we look at how elected leaders make decisions on our budgets, that's really them value, and we should be paying attention to that. Today actually was an exciting day for budgets. We didn't plan this, but President his budget proposal, and at the federal level, it's important to be looking at that budget. New tax increases on corporations and the wealthiest Americans to ensure that Medicare stays. Yeah, woohoo for that, yes. And he also proposed rolling back tax cuts for high earners tax rates. So we do, at least at this panel, find that very exciting. Also, in the middle of a budget legislative session, it's in full swing. At the end of the month, Governor DeWine had wrote out his state address and released his budget. There were some exciting things there. The focus on children, the extension of the Ohio College Opportunity Grant, and increasing support for mental and behavioral health. So those are some things that we can. And here, just earlier this week in the city of Cleveland, we had it was approved by the mayor and city council. They're including increases in housing code enforcement, and also some things that we are, watching levels required for the recently established community police commission. Right? But these budgets and the budget process has an impact on all of our lives. So more just on the state and local process. Hopefully, if you haven't gotten this, our handout here, we've got a really cool handout with our Ohio state budget timeline, as well as the budget process here locally in Cleveland that was provided by Councilmember Rebecca Moore. So grab one if you haven't. But this is, I think, a part of the tool, and I think it's a separate process that we're gonna dig in on. It's really just, knowing that process, knowing the timeline around. I got to shout out my colleague Ben, who designed this Ohio budget timeline for our 101 report. And I think step two, we're going to also talk about, this, in fellowship of budget nerds and folks who, want to grow this conversation, not just in bars, but, also in our communities, to help more people understand what our budget, right? And step three is going to be talking about taking action and engaging with our electors. So we're going to talk a little bit about these steps, and I'm going to kick it to, if you could just give us an update on what is happening in the State House and share maybe a little bit about budget. So if you want to go ahead.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you all. Talk about this or listen to some conversations about budget and tax policy. Honestly, what I want to say is, are you all okay? Because, it can be a daunting, but what I think it really shows is people are not just interested in figuring out a way to voice in policy, to figure out ways that they family better for their neighbor, for the stranger on the street, that people actually, it's evidence that people want to protect. And for someone who is in spreadsheets, has a job that keeps me in my head a lot, it is so heartening to see you all here. I can't express that enough. And the other reason why it's great to see you here is because it is the time to pitch in and to let them know about what's going on in your community, that you're watching the votes and the decisions that are being made. Currently, proposed budget is being talked about in various committees in the state house. That gives people, anybody who wants to, can show up on the proposals that are in there. The priorities that they seem to lay out, unheard and unmet in that document. So over the next couple of weeks, there's to testify, lots of opportunities to call your representatives, to join together with your friends, neighbors, colleagues, the folks here in this room. We really need to try to make this happen. And this can be the to you, your neighborhood, your block, your family. So it is conversations. And one big way, if you want budget sort of brain dump of politics, that we have really averaged a lot of different groups and organizations and conversations. So whether it's folks in the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, our conversations with the Workers Center, we kind of aggregated a lot of those budget priorities into something that we call. So if you want to be all in for Ohio or your neighborhood or self, there's nothing wrong with that. The People's Budget is a place to kind of plug in, find out when, where, how, and why, and to hopefully be a place that we can gather to get some of this stuff done.
Awesome. Just I think there's also a conversation in particular with what's happening with so-called surplus. So, people are, at least some things, people come online is, why can't we cut taxes since we're getting so much surplus?
Okay, so you can show of hands or shout out something. Is concerned about their school in their community, is concerned about having enough preschool slots for kids, concerned about how our unemployment comp system was a debacle during recession, who's concerned about, potholes, mental health treatment that makes sense, justice system that actually is not, that can figure out the difference between retribution and care and get people what they if you have any sort of these concerns and you think that they're currently being met, then there is no surplus. That should be coming back to fix problems. That's not a surplus. That signifies all the things that Ohio has been falling. So that is the people's money, and it should go to the most good for the most people. Tax cuts don't do it. The back money would be returned to people who don't need it, would go to the wealthy and well-connected, be worrying about how is my kid going to get to school? Is this school bill, do we have enough teachers? Those things would still be on the table. So there is no certain needs.
Well said. Yes. That's a lot. Following up, beyond taxes and spending, what are the other pieces of the state house right now?
Oh my goodness. If you want to see sort of check out the current legislation that is filed in the state house, because scary stuff for everyone. And before I get into this list, let me just preface. Civic participation still does. There are going to be some scary bills, some ridiculous proposals, but one phone call, one letter, one interaction with the right legislator at the right can change it. And we've seen it happen in big ways and small ways. It happens. So one of the big things that's up right now that's separate from the budget is House Bill 1 is a flat. Hey, that seems like a good deal, but really, let me tell you, flat is not flat and it's not fair. A way to cut taxes, the vast majority of that tax cut is in the top, I think 89% goes to people or something like that. If you're middle class, essentially middle or low, you're not really going to see any benefit from that. You might even see a tiny little what this does is take billions out of our revenue, could be spending to fix some of these problems, and hand it back to people who need it. So that's one thing. It could change the structure that we will always be running behind. Other things include HJR1. You may know it by its formerly known as. This is this really ridiculous idea that if you have a citizen, so if you come together with your community and you want to put something on the ballot, you get all of the signal of the work on it. Well, that you got to win by 60% of 50 plus 1. 60%. So it's creating this higher threshold initiated ballots. So the ballot gave us things like the minimum wage. It's been a way for people to get things done when the legislature is on the ground. So that is currently hanging out at the state house, and the state is trying to silence people. So that's a big way. But even in small ways, there's prevent union members from getting paid time off to do some kinds of big ways. In small ways, there's this big push to continue to silence. Oh, have the voter ID stuff, and they're coming after every single avenue. So your voice is crucial this time around.
Thank you. I'm with you that I think this room, but also all Ohioans, our voices are important. We need to make sure that we're bringing them into the process. Brittany, and I think if you could just speak to, noble and no vital voice in the state budget landscape in Ohio. And if you could maybe show what are the top areas of y'all's concern and maybe just any.
Yeah, so I'll start it out. Instead of talking about myself, I'll just some questions just to make sure everybody's awake and alive and everything. So,
All right.
of hands, how many people drove here today? Who walked? It's cold outside. All right, we got some walkers. Okay, shout out to you. Okay, anybody take public transit?
Right.
Yeah, we got a public transit here today. Who bought a drink at the bar? All right, I'll begin in one after this. No, but with that, they start this off by saying that we're all impacted by the state budget and in some way determined by the state budget. And Daniel, I'm Brittany. I am the organizer for Noble, Ohioans for Budget Legislation Equality. And when we talk about people being impacted by, I would say that the individuals that make up Noble are just impacted by the state budget. So when we're talking about people not paying their fair share, the people at Noble are the ones that aren't going to have health care because of it, won't be able to drop their kids off their child. So yeah, the budget matters. It matters immensely. It matters to people. It should matter to every single person in this room. When we talk about, we're right, as Hannah said, we're right in the middle of the budget. We're preparing for that. That's a large majority of the work we're doing, but the only work we're doing. But we're talking about the budget. Around November of last year, we put together a policy document. It's basically our needs together. We wrote them out. It's about 30 to 40 people in the room, all ages, colors, sizes, shapes, everything. We came together to document our priorities and what we would like to see accomplished in this budget. We touched on different areas. We were looking at housing, mental health, looking at revenue. We're looking at Medicaid, adult protective services, seniors, disabilities areas. And out of that, we were able to put together a nice list of there are some issues that we do prioritize a little bit more in aid, kinship care, public transportation, and right on SNAP. Even though we're talking about the state budget, not a lot is done around SNAP and a lot by the federal government, but there are some things that our state can do to make sure getting adequate amounts of food in their system. So we're advocating for Medicaid. We're asking our legislature to hold off on work requirement. We live in a state where for some reason our legislators think we should have to work. Yeah, boo, I heard that. Boo. No, it's not that we don't want to work. Some people literally cannot work. And then there are people that are working consistent and some of the requirements, the work requirements are to meet. So we're constantly fighting against things like that. About SNAP. That's a very interesting one, especially right now where a lot of people are going to be losing a lot of food assistance. During the pandemic, some additional funding coming to the SNAP program, the food stamp program, from the basically overnight that money went away. We're losing on average $100 per family. It's going to be insane, but we're at seniors to at least continue to get $150 a month. Before the pandemic, we had seniors at Noble that were getting 15, 16 assistance. Like I said, during the pandemic, they did get a little additional support. So that support has gone away. We have people that are getting $23 a month. And I don't know when the last time y'all went, but with $23, they'll be able to get a couple cans of beans, milk, maybe if they're lucky, and a yogurt. So we definitely want to see more money there. $150 for the most vulnerable people. When we're talking about, shout out Cleveland and RTA, they do have one of the better systems. Ohio, for whatever reason, is not funding transit. When I first started at Noble, I want to say, and don't quote me on this number, right? But don't quote me on this one. I want to say transit was being funded at about $4 million a year for the entire state. Last budget, we got that number up to about 70 million, but even that's misleading. A vast majority of that money is actually coming from the federal government. So our state prioritizing transit in any way, shape, or form. We're asking for at least a year to be invested into public transportation. We TA on a regular basis. We could just see where that money could really improve services. So we're going to continue to advocate there for that. And then I have one more question for y'all, and then I'll leave the rest and drink your beers. But how many people in here have heard of foster care? Yeah, foster care is awesome. I'm not hating on foster care. How many people have heard of kinship care? Oh, wow, I'm impressed. Usually it's much less people, but we do have a decent amount of people. I myself am a product of kinship care. I was raised by my grandparents. Shout out my grandparents. At Noble, we're constantly between kinship care and foster care, because at the end of the day, you know, these are kids that are being taken care of, amazing people. With kinship care, the major difference is that these are aunts, uncles, grandparents, etc. Whereas foster care is the case, but in the state of Ohio, the way that that's being funded is that word. It's disheartening. We have children on average in some counties are getting per child about minimum. We're talking $4,500 maximum per month. About kinship care per child, relatives are getting about, and we're not talking doubling this per child. If there's two children in the care, about $300. If there's two children, we're talking 450. It's just a huge inequity between the way we're funding foster care. We have ample amounts of kinship caregivers having behalf with Noble on behalf of their story, telling their funding in line with foster care there. And I mean, I'll just kind of end this with saying that, like, as Daniel said in the beginning, you know, by this budget, we all have an opportunity to make our voices heard in this conversation and think of the budget as this big billion-page document officials have power over. You know, each one of us has a say heard, and we can really use the budget as an opportunity to bring us together, bring us to Cape for an Ohio where everybody's needs are met. And I'll pass it back to Daniel.
Evan, microphone keeps dropping, so I don't know if y'all can hear me. If you could maybe just speak to folks about, you know, you work with PB CLE and Noble, you know, you have overlap in local budget advocacy, and in particular, your focus around Rescue Plan Act and those funds on our community. If you could maybe just tell us about your recovery funds, their impact on the local budget process, and why many of us are advocating for a participatory budgeting practice to be used to guide their use.
Hey everybody, so yeah, my name's Evan. I work with Brittany and Noble, and definitely echo everything. So PB CLE or participatory budgeting, or budget 2, which I think it's a little bit harder. That you know, as a society, we are pulling this money for our government, and so people should have a right to say what's done with some of that money. PB is a form of direct democracy. It's been around since 19. It's been tried in 1,500 different cities across the world since then. Successes, but basically the idea is that you take a small portion of a city, even a neighborhood budget, a ward budget, and you allow people to their own ways that could be spent, and then have a vote on it. You end cool ideas that might not otherwise receive that kind of funding. You know, we've talked to a lot of people in the community about, you know, things that they would like to see. We've heard ideas like community-owned grocery stores and some of these food deserts that we have in Cleveland. Let's, like, you know, community healthcare centers. Again, where they just did a PB process this past November. I thought was really cool is they funded second and third shift childcare for they had that vote. And you know, it's not that same kind of ideas. You know, one thing I've really learned work. Frankly, sometimes we don't give them enough. It's very easy to look at politicians and see them as the root of all evil and things, but when you get to know people and see that the pressures that they're dealing with are in directions, you start to understand that they need our help. They need our backing. What PB is kind of about is, you know, getting some public backing data for some of these ideas that might never get past an ordinary legislature. Part of the opportunity in Cleveland that's kind of generated this. Shout out to Daniel and Jonathan and Molly and everybody who's been making that a reality and pushing it over the last couple of years. So there's this thing called the American Rescue Plan Act that was passed like 2 months, which is intended to be money for communities all over from COVID. It's basically the federal government for once and was like, we need to help people out. We need to give them money to kind of get back on their lost revenue, maybe even try some new things that might help these communities. And Cleveland actually, you know, due to kind of one of the poorest cities in the country, we received $511.7 billion just for Cleveland. And the idea with participatory, hey, what if we took 1% of that? And actually, originally they had $1 million, which was meant to represent the percentage of people who live in poverty in Cleveland, which is crazy. 1 in 3 people in our city living below the poverty line since they first asked for that. But Mayor Bibb was willing to start off with 5, which would have been 1% of this ARPA money, just for their own ideas for and have a vote. And really, you know, it's a cliche that money is power, but if you power really lies in our society, it's with the people who make the decisions about this money. You know, that's not to say that we're trying to take power away from it, but you know, I think the status quo right now is most ordinary thing about what's happening with their tax dollars. They aren't following it in the news, or like me, and I'm sure a lot of people in the room are. You know, they maybe don't see the way that it's being spent, and they hope for them to connect, these decisions that are being made with things that are directly impacting them. Every single decision that gets at the city, at the county, and the state level, at the federal level too, and filtering down to your life and your family's lives and your friends' lives, and the thing, and the vulnerability that you experience as a member of our community. We love to pride ourselves on being the world's oldest democracy, and it's time to have more economic democracy in this country, and that's part of what PB is about. And that's a huge amount of money. I mean, 511 to Cleveland, 200 the Cuyahoga County government, and then Ohio received $5.36 billion. That's just you said the full amount was like 1.9 trillion dollars. And that's what you almost never see. And there are limits on what it can be spent on. I mean, it's got to be like a one-time expense. You can't fund ongoing projects and things like that. That could be a transformative amount of money. And there are a lot of places across the country that are trying. So we wanted to try something new here.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ed.
Yes.
So one thing you said, I just want to do a cheers to all the budget. I know y'all are always wearing your thinking caps, but if you're thinking of any good questions, Q&A in a minute. And this also goes to our folks joining on the live stream, during the comments, and we'll be sharing your questions. But if y'all can maybe, and this is open to anybody to answer, but share some of the stories of the work, or things that y'all want to share, and kind of like what's been most memorable or impactful from some of that. I think as you're talking about, in particular, Art talking earlier, and just like how that really helped save so many folks from, as we went COVID and we're coming out, we're seeing like not just those ARPA dollars that are deciding on, but there's also robust amount of federal funding for relief efforts across the board, and so many things that were supports that really kept folks. But any connection between like just broader sort of federal funds and investments, and I know you wanted to share.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think for a lot of people, the first months of COVID were probably one of the first times in their lives like they needed the government. Like they were, up Schitt's Creek without a paddle if there wasn't some kind of assistance, unemployed immediately. And I know a lot of other people were too. Although I know a lot of people who didn't get their checks, but the fact that our unemployment system was so generous for a couple of years, the businesses were able to keep afloat. I know, for instance, music venues were hit extremely hard at the beginning of the pandemic because nobody knew if we could be in public together. It was safe. And so, all of that was budget decisions. And I think that because inflation and other things, there are elements that are trying to say, well, that was a mistake. We could have, that was irresponsible. We shouldn't have spent. Can you imagine how bad it would have been without it? There are people who were vulnerable and needed that kind of assistance before the pandemic. They're vulnerable and need that kind of assistance now. Sometimes but ultimately to get it into your mouth and into your schools and your roads and everything like that, it has to go through local government. And so, every decision that's made at that high level.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Let's see. A thing that comes to mind whenever I think about budgets and budget work, budget cycle. Ohioans from all over the place and passed what's called the Fair School Funding Plan. And there's one that sort of session and campaign that sticks out in my mind. Some of our grassroots partners, so Ohio Organizing Collaborative, they brought a bunch of folks in, Fair School Funding Plan, to talk to the folks that were representing them about it and why it was important, parents and all kinds of people milling about the state house. And that there was a group of parents in I think it was the room, basically one of the key decision makers walking by, and the parent just buttonholed him of the hallway. And there also happened to be a camera, and that image sort of became the contact making a demand to finally change Ohio school funding formula that based on equity, not how much money your community, local property taxes, but one where it is based on the educated child, and one where we take into account all kinds that kids show up with when they come into school. And so that sort of captured what was going on with that campaign. We all started talking about that, like, okay, let's get equitable school funding passed. This is a lot of people told us, no, it's impossible. That has been it's been a problem. It was declared unconstitutional and not. And so a lot of folks were just like, there's no here. But because of moments like that, it only happened. And so that's on the books now. Is it perfect? No. For this cycle to make it live up to its promise? Absolutely. Framework that to actually make Ohio's school funding, and it's only because it was parents, teachers, buzzing those phone calls, union leaders, coming together. It's time. We're overdue. And so even in an environment that to the concept, the very idea of equity and funding, people, that's really, that keeps me going. It's a pretty good deal. It is possible. Absolutely possible.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I mean, and we gotta celebrate the wins.
It's a big one.
It's not a big deal. All right, so one last reminder, if y'all are interested in asking questions, we have to start taking those questions. But while folks maybe sort out what they want to ask y'all about, I think as you were talking, Hannah, it just got me thinking of what are people planning right now. I know the crew here, we all have some things lined up. So maybe if you want to just shout out some of the ways in which your current planned activities in the State House, right? And if there are ways that folks can get involved. Also, I think most of the tables have the QR codes. If y'all are looking for like plugging in on next steps, we got a little landing page you can check out. Just look what you got going on.
Yeah, so actually in the next a bunch of opportunities for folks to take action if you are interested in advocating out, or if you have some issues on your own, you can join us. We'll be going to Columbus is on the week after, on the 14th and the 16th, we'll be testifying of various House committees. On the 14th, that day, for children and families needs. On the 16th, that's going to be for folks on Medicaid, but on the 22nd, we're going down as well, and that's so more general needs. And if you want to join us, you can hit me up. You can talk to Evan, or a lot of information can be found on our website, which is quality.org. You can sign up on there for updates and things of that nature.
You can find it here.
Oh, it's on the QR code according to Michelle. Thank you.
All right, now it's time to hear from y'all. So, also, do we have any questions or anything coming in online?
Pull another raffle.
Okay. You want to do another raffle?
We've got t-shirts.
Yeah.
We have wooden spoons.
If you haven't already, do please pull us call on the raffle form. So if you haven't filled one out, we have them up here. And what's in the amazing okay. So y'all have choices. So we have t-shirts, we have a beautiful basket here, whiskey glass. So yeah, we got some swag. Okay.
He's not going to come up, but I'll repeat it. Go ahead, you holler, I'll repeat it.
What's your stance on Senate Bill 1, which is about for education? Senate Bill 1, and also House 23 on transportation.
Your stance on Senate Bill 3. Okay, so having a governor appointee run curriculum, basically, make some big decisions. This is an area that probably doesn't need additional politification. And, I really see that petition as a last gasp effort to some really divisive sort of rooted in hatred through whenever it didn't make it through the legislature the regular way. And so I feel like it's a runaround to get things like or whatever the particular, political appointee may feel is under the levy, which could be literally anything, under control. And so there's no way we need to be making those sorts of changes and further removing the local control and moving the decisions further and further and further away from the that care about their kids and want to be controlling that. And so it should be hope it's a non-starter. And then the transportation. Do you want to shout out some of the details on that one?
Rail and air.
Well, I'll just say that I'm still burned by Governor Kasich's decision not to fund it. As someone who is between Columbus and Cleveland frequently, personal attack. In terms of transit, Ohio clearly needs options. What we have right now is not working. And the idea of what we have right now working for the future, the impacts of climate change happening, it. You know, we've talked a lot about priorities, and we've talked a lot about this budget service. One of the big areas that, you know, Brittany's brought up, more accessible transit here locally, better scheduling, more. We need transformation and move. And this so-called surplus could go a long way. And so I've not checked out 23. I will look at it after this. They're not making those decisions and investments now. We are going to be in literal in the future. So.
Right now we are different levels, rare funding or constant funding. But we know actually in Ohio, the state government is, I'm sorry to say, in the way, because the ones sitting in all those committees, those chairs, they are, so they do not really know what metropolitan urban counties knows. So when I first heard of PB CLE, I was inspired by a site called Refund Cleveland. And I'm thinking originally it's because we heard ARPA funds to come into Cleveland, city of Cleveland first. Shortest person in the house right now. But unfortunately, I'm the highest hope. We can actually do PB Ohio because state government not distributing our taxpayers' money properly. So the biggest obstacles we are all facing. City and county gets hurt. So what is your takes on that idea? I would like to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. I think that would be an amazing idea. I mean, I think you've kind of touched on, you know, very, very keenly felt, I think, in a lot of places in this, you know, the higher you go, the less truly democratic and representative. And I think, you know, kind of the urban-rural divide, they kind of use that divide to pit us against each other. You know, I don't think the people living in rural counties are our enemies by any means, but by kind of telling people that their issues have nothing to do with each other, I think that kind of plays to people who already have power in this country. But you know, I would love to see more economic democracy at every level. You know, like I said, the higher you go, you have things like which kind of enshrine that dynamic where you have a, you know, majority of people being represented by less legislators in different parts of the country, and yeah, I think that direct democracy and you know, kind of national referendums or statewide referendums on things like the budget surplus, quote unquote, is going. I think that would be an extremely positive thing.
And just to pick up on that sort of Ohio and the people that actually representing us, and you know, I'm from a community in Kentucky, and the same things that I experienced, my cousins, my neighbors, and in those places are the same things I hear in the priorities of here in Cleveland, a huge major city in the U.S., right? And you know, Evan pointed out that so often place, whatever, is being used to divide us. You pick a thing now, and it will be used as a walking to your neighbor about something that really matters, literally. And whenever we did some surveying, some polling, which is new for something like this, to figure out where Ohioans really were on some things. And so we put out a bunch of messaging without a bunch of slick language and just asked some real basic questions. Hey, do you think that people making over $250,000 a year, this 71% of Ohioans were like, yeah, that's a good idea. I definitely support that. And then even something like care response that so many just assume would be extremely controversial. And in politics a lot, people are reluctant to take this on and say we should be our criminal justice system something radically different, something that looks more like. And so we actually asked that question too, and we asked it very plainly. Ohioans said, yes, that makes sense to us. We would like to see. And, this wasn't a survey and poll of Clevelanders or Columbus. This was all Ohioans. This is people in Chillicothe and Portsmouth and Westchester and, here in Moraine and like the numbers, when you ask people what they want, they are also change of taking care of each other and their neighbors and their kids. The politics just need to get in line with and that's all our job. That's our job.
Well said. Well, I think we're running out almost an hour. I'm gonna throw. If you, I think this. I guess I'm asking the question on behalf of all of us in the room. You should tell our state representative and our state senator. What would those be?
I think to Hannah's point just now, the way to make our communities safer is to invest in them, not to punish them, not to come down on them, not to withdraw support. Sure that everybody is getting the same kind of opportunities, no matter where you're born. And I think that goes for places way out in the sticks, and I think that goes for most blighted neighborhoods in Cleveland.
Right.
I would just keep it simple and just say fun, health, and humans in the state of Ohio.
And second to all of that, and I'll just say, listen to the people who put you in constituents. It will make your life easier. You will do a good job. Really, the folks with the fancy happy hours and the cocktail parties, but y'all know what you need. You know what's best. Is oh my goodness, just quit it. On to you.
All right. So, I think we're gonna do another. Oh, you have a question? Okay.
It's not really a
Go
question.
ahead.
So I'm an old lady. For years, I've made it a point to always open my mouth. Sometimes maybe they do. But there are a whole bunch of things in this country that if we didn't open our mouths would become even worse. Hannah referred to HB1 in her initial remarks, and Evan and Hannah have said, if we don't make sure that HB1, then we can do the most wonderful things that the governor and we would like to see, and they'll be ruined. It will be pulled back. Maybe not this budget, but it will not exist because there's Ohio has a lot of money now, and the money's going to go away real quick as soon as they start spending it to make up for these taxes. Every one of you, as you work on the budget, you have to also send the message, no, on any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. And I just felt like I had to say.
And first chair of Noble.
Right.
And also after this, and the community leader for CLAJ, residents, and this is one which I tell my residents. I let my residents know. To your state senators, state reps, Congress. I go down now, we fought a long time, but now we get to fill out a form to go and speak to the city council. So residents have to learn to step up, speak out, and speak out loud. Thank you.
And Michelle, would you like to pull our next rep?
Don't and let anybody tell you they're not.
All right, I have Patterson. Pick your choice. No.
Yeah. You gotta be present. What was his name? Yes, Patterson Gauntner.
If I know them, can I get?
Michelle B.
Oh, those are yeah, that's free. Yeah. You want a t-shirt? Okay. You want a picture? We got the throwback.
Amber
Considering a
Sellers.
small.
Sellers.
Yeah.
Diane Howard. Jonathan Wells. Lou.
All right. Yeah.
Literally.
All right.
I think this is Tara Aaron. Tara, sorry.
Oh, for coming out tonight. I'm just gonna conclude and echo everything that everybody else is saying. Y'all are the trusted messengers in your community. The budget is happening now. Please get active, right? Choice on how you use it. If you haven't already, please do scan the barcode, the flyers on the table to see how you can join us and what's happening. And for those who want to actually share a testimony in your story tonight, if you can see my colleague Bree, they're going to be helping us record some testimonials. So thank you again. And some sponsors at North Shore AFL CIO. Thank you to all. And give yourself a round of applause for coming.
Thank you to Dan